In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. Amen.
You want me to stand up?
So as on the ride up, we heard in the van, the seminarians listened to the great account of the Vendée Catholics in France who refused to compromise the Catholic faith and go along with the revolution. And what is the essence of the Masonic Revolution, of the French Revolution, and its twin sister, the American Revolution? And these are all the foundations of modern governments. What is it that unites them all? It is that they accept that Jesus Christ is not king. Jesus Christ is not God. And therefore he should be kicked out of our governments, our laws, our economic decisions, and our families, and our social life, and our culture. That's the essence of the revolution. I will not serve Jesus Christ as God and King. And this is the great sin of the modern world. As St. Pius X said, this is the age of the apostasy. When men do not want God, and you just drive down on a Sunday and you can see how many people cutting their grass, washing their cars, doing work on Sundays, and it's God's law. It's His third commandment, and it's not that hard to understand that. And yet, men who are supposed to know God's laws and love His laws spit on it and despise it, and many even just don't know. So the essence of the revolution is this revolt against God and in favor of man's rights. The Declaration of the Rights of Man was condemned by the Church. Pope Pius VII was the first to condemn it. But it's putting man over God. I can do my thing, and I don't need to obey God's law. And this is the essence of the revolution. And there's always been a war of the Catholic, those following Christ in the Catholic Church, and those opposed to Him. There's always been a head-on conflict. From the Protestant Revolution, with the open persecutions, how many Scots were put to death, how many Irish were hunted down like animals and put to death, and the martyrs in Wales, and the same in the French Revolution. They were hunted down, and the priests who did not take the oath, who did not compromise the faith, they stayed faithful. And St. John Vianney grew up in that situation, going to Mass in a barn, with hay bales around and chickens crowing. And that's where they went to Mass in the middle of the night. So the priest that made the jury, that made the oath, they compromised the Catholic faith. And the Catholic people would not go to their Mass. And even they scrubbed the floors where the priest walked into the church. They scrubbed the floors wherever that priest walked that made the compromise, because he in a way desecrated the church. So this great conflict, this great battle between the light and darkness is part of the history of the Church, and it will continue to the end of the world. But what happened, Archbishop Lefebvre says, that in the 1800s, the Catholics said, well, look, we can't be always fighting. How can we live always fighting like this? So they decided we can sweeten the relationship by compromising the Catholic faith. And this was the great era of the liberal Catholicism, the 1800s, when they said, well, we can water down the separation of church and state. We don't need to condemn that anymore. We don't need to condemn modern democracy. We don't need to condemn the errors of the modern world. So liberal Catholicism sought a harmony between what cannot be mixed, light and darkness, Christ and Satan. And Pope Pius IX said, the greatest enemy in the Church is not communism, it's not Satanism, it is liberal Catholicism. And liberal Catholicism triumphed at Vatican II. And now the Society of St. Pius X always stood for the Catholic doctrine and the Catholic Mass. And for 42 years they fought hard. But the leadership, just like at Vatican II, the head of the Church, the leadership in the society caved in. They want to make a peace with the ideas that go against Christ's kingship and his divinity and his priesthood. And that's why Bishop Fillet has compromised the Holy Catholic faith. That's why we cannot compromise Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ is the same, yesterday, today, forever. And we stay with him and his Holy Catholic faith and his Holy Catholic teaching and his Holy Catholic Mass and sacraments. We cannot change those. And if we do, Christ tells us what will happen. When he said, "Who does not believe will be condemned." And we cannot water down Christ's teaching. We just can't do that. So that explains where we're at now. We are throughout the world, our little candles throughout the world, trying to keep the true faith. And sometimes they're called the Resistance, the SSPX Marian Corps, whatever it is. That's all we want to be, is Roman Catholics. And if that means, we do know that it will come to an open persecution when the Antichrist, after the victory of Our Lady, he will rise and he will do everything to extinguish the Catholic faith from the face of the earth. And it'll be hard to buy and sell. It'll be very difficult for Catholics to live. And many of them will just starve to death. They'll undergo great persecutions from the Antichrist, who will invent new ones and revive old ones, say the prophecies. Old tortures will be revived. So this is the fight we're in. The life on earth for man, says Job, is a warfare. And the warfare is that faithfulness to believe and to hold what Christ revealed. And it is the only true religion. There is no other. There's only one true mediator, one true Savior, one true God who became man. There is no other. So we must pray to the Virgin Mary. She's the bulwark. She is the castle walls, like her mantle, to help us keep the Catholic faith. So when we go today to the funeral of Father Gruner, pray for his soul. Pray for him in this Mass. Pray for Bishop Fillet, who will be doing the funeral. We will not participate in it, because he has compromised the Catholic faith. And we cannot participate in someone who does a public act that stands for a public compromise of the Holy Catholic faith. So we're not going for his public worship. We're going for Father Gruner's soul, to pray for his soul. And so during the Mass, you may pray the Rosary, you can pray the Missals, do a spiritual reading, whatever. But we will not participate in this Mass because it's a public leader, a prelate, who has compromised the Catholic faith on Vatican II, on the new Mass of Religious Liberty, on the new Code of Canon Law, on the new Profession of Faith, which expresses a new doctrine, and we cannot compromise that. So let's pray to the Mother of God to fight on with her weapons, the Rosary and the Scapular. And let's go now to the Holy Sacrifice, where Christ himself comes down from heaven on the altar, renews his supreme prayer, which is the Jesus Christ on the cross, the eternal high priest, offering his heart to the Father for the redemption of those who are of good will, who want to follow and stay with him. O Mary, conceived without sin.
Pray for us who
O Mary, conceived without sin.
Pray for us who
O Mary, conceived without sin.
Pray for us who